Ever felt completely out of your depth, yet somehow found your inner strength? That was me, a reluctant pawn in a ruthless alpha's power game. I never asked to be swept into his world of dominance and danger, but against all odds I didn't just survive. I inadvertently became an undeniable force. This is the story of how an accidental connection forged an unofficial Luna from a captive. Chapter 1. The Selection of Shadows. The cold iron of the shackles bit into my wrists, a harsh reminder that I was no longer a person, I was a prize. Or rather, a consolation prize. Lift your head for O2, the guard hissed, his voice echoing in the damp stone hallway. I didn't move. I kept my chin tucked against my chest, my tangled chestnut hair shielding my face. If I didn't look at them, maybe I wouldn't exist. Maybe the nightmare of the last 3 days would dissolve into the mist. But then the heavy oak doors of the great hall groaned open and the scent hit me. It was the smell of a brewing storm. Ozone, wet earth, and something dangerously sweet like dark chocolate. It was the scent of a king. Alpha Rex. He sat on a throne of jagged black stone, his presence filling the room like a physical weight. He didn't look like a man, he looked like a god carved from granite and shadow. His eyes, a piercing, predatory silver, swept over the line of tributes sent by the shattered packs of the north. I was at the very end of the line. The weak one. The one they had sent to die so the more valuable wolves could live. They didn't know my secret. They didn't know that my blood carried the lineage of the crescent moon, a line supposed to be extinct. This is all you have to offer? Rex's voice was a low growl that vibrated in my very marrow. Weaklings and runts? I asked for a bride to seal the treaty, not a burden. The girl at the end, a voice whispered, my own pack's traitorous elder. She's hardy, Alpha. She will serve you well. Rex stood up. The room went silent. Every wolf in the hall bowed their head. I was the only one who stayed upright, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. He walked down the line, his heavy boots clicking against the marble. With every step he took, the air grew thinner. When he stopped in front of me, I could feel the heat radiating off his body. He reached out a gloved hand and hooked it under my chin, forcing me to look up. Our eyes met. And the world exploded. It wasn't a spark. It was a forest fire. A searing white-hot bolt of lightning shot from his skin into mine, traveling straight to my soul. My breath hitched. His silver eyes blew wide, the pupils expanding until they were pools of midnight. The mark on my collarbone, the one I had hidden with mud and ash, began to glow with a faint silver light. Rex stiffened. His hand didn't drop. His grip tightened, not out of malice but out of shock. He leaned in, his nose brushing the pulse point on my neck. I felt his sharp intake of breath. You, he whispered, a sound of pure, unadulterated possessiveness. Rex didn't turn to the elder to finalize the deal. Instead, he ripped the chains from the wall with a single violent jerk and pulled me flush against his chest. The treaty is changed, he roared to the hall. I am not taking a bride. I am taking my mate. Chapter 2. The Lion's Den. The Iron Ridge Fortress was a labyrinth of cold stone and flickering torches. Rex didn't lead me, he carried me. His arm was a band of steel around my waist, his stride so long I had to practically run to keep up until he simply growled and tossed me over his shoulder like a sack of grain. Put me down. I shouted, hitting his back with my fists. It was like hitting a brick wall. You can't do this. I'm not yours. Be silent, Rachel, he barked. I froze. He knew my name. I hadn't told anyone my real name since the day my father's pack was burned to the ground. He kicked open the doors to the Alpha's quarters. A massive room filled with furs, the smell of wood smoke and the overwhelming scent of him. He dropped me onto a sprawling bed covered in wolf pelts. He didn't move. He stood at the foot of the bed, his chest heaving as if he'd just run a marathon. His silver eyes were wild, shifting between human and wolf. The bond, I whispered, clutching the furs to my chest. It's a mistake. It has to be. The moon doesn't make mistakes, Rex growled. He took a step toward me and I scurried back until my shoulders hit the headboard. I felt it the moment I touched you. My wolf recognized yours. But there's a problem, isn't there? He leaned over me, his hands on either side of my head, pinning me in place. The tension between us was a physical thing, a wire stretched so tight it was humming. You aren't a northern runt, he hissed. Your scent, it's royal. You are the daughter of Silas, aren't you? The man who tried to assassinate my father. The air left my lungs. My secret was out. My father was framed, I gasped, my voice trembling. He would never. He died for his crimes, Rex interrupted, his face inches from mine. I could see the flecks of gold in his silver eyes. And by all rights, I should kill you where you sit to finish what he started. He reached out, his fingers tracing the line of my throat. His touch was electric, making my skin prickle and my heart race. Despite the words he was saying, his wolf was singing to mine. He wanted to claim me. He wanted to bite. But I can't, he muttered, his voice dropping to a pained rasp. The bond, it's too strong. My wolf would rip my own heart out if I harmed you. He pulled away abruptly, turning his back to me. You will stay in these rooms, he commanded. You are my prisoner. My unofficial Luna. The pack will think you are here to serve me, to seal the treaty. If they find out who you really are, they will tear you apart before I can even shift. Why save me at all? Asked my voice small. Rex looked at me over his shoulder, his expression a mask of ruthless coldness. Because, he said, you aren't the only one with a secret, Rachel. And I suspect you're carrying something far more dangerous than just a royal bloodline. He looked pointedly at my stomach and my heart stopped. Chapter 3. The Masked Moon. I lay awake in the dark, the heavy silence of the fortress pressing down on me. Rex was gone, patrolling the borders or perhaps just trying to escape the pull of the bond that tethered us together. I pressed my hand to my stomach. It was still flat, still seemingly empty. But I knew. I had known for weeks. 6 weeks ago, during the festival of the masked moon, the packs had gathered in a neutral territory for a night of anonymity. It was the only time a wolf could be free of their rank, their history, and their name. I had worn a mask of silver lace. I had met a man in the shadows of the ancient willow trees. We hadn't spoken. We had only felt. The pull had been magnetic, a primal recognition that transcended words. Thought he was a rogue, a traveler. We had shared a night of intense, soul-searing connection. A fade-to-black moment that had changed my life forever. I never saw his face. I only remembered the scent of a brewing storm. Rex. It had been him. The ruthless alpha was the father of the child growing inside me. And he had no idea. Or did he? The doors to the chamber creaked open. Rex walked in, his shirt discarded, his bronze skin glistening with sweat. He looked like a warrior from an ancient myth. He stopped when he saw me sitting up. Go to sleep, Rachel, he said, his voice weary. I can't, I said. Rex. What happens when the other packs arrive for the arranged marriage? You were supposed to marry Lady Celine of the Bloodfang. She's coming to claim her place as Luna. Rex walked to the window, looking out at the jagged peaks. The treaty required a marriage. They don't care who the woman is as long as she carries the power to unite the North. Celine will kill me, I said. She's a true alpha female. She'll see through my disguise in a second. Rex turned around, his eyes glowing in the moonlight. He walked to the bed and sat on the edge. He reached out and took my hand. His palm was hot, his grip firm. Let her try, he said. The bond between us isn't just a mating. It's an accidental bond. A soul link that happened because our powers matched. Makes you my unofficial Luna. You have the authority to command this pack even without a ceremony. I don't want to command, I whispered. I just want to survive. You will do more than survive, Rex said, his voice dropping to an intimate, husky tone. He leaned in, his face so close I could feel the warmth of his breath on my lips. You will be the most powerful woman this mountain has ever seen. Because I won't let anyone, not Celine, not the council, take what belongs to me. He leaned in closer, his eyes searching mine. The air was thick with unspoken promises. Just as his lips were about to touch mine, a horn sounded from the valley below. Rex stiffened, his head snapping toward the window. She's here, he hissed. Celine has arrived. And she's brought a seer with her. Chapter 4. The Seer's Gaze. The great hall was transformed. Red banners hung from the rafters, and the smell of roasting meat filled the air. But the atmosphere wasn't festive. It was predatory. I stood by Rex's side, dressed in a gown of deep emerald silk that he had forced me into. He had told me to keep my scent masked, to act like a common servant who had simply caught his eye. But the way he kept his hand firmly on the small of my back told a different story to anyone who was looking. Lady Selene was a vision of lethal beauty. Her hair was the color of dried blood, and her eyes were a cold, calculating amber. She didn't walk, she prowled. Alpha Rex, she purred, bowing slightly. It seems your taste has declined since we last spoke. A commoner? Really? She is more than she appears, Selene, Rex said, his voice like grinding stones. Selene's eyes flickered to me, filled with a hatred so pure it made my blood run cold. She stepped closer, sniffing the air. She smells of nothing. How boring. But let's see what the seer says. A small, withered woman stepped out from behind Selene. Her eyes were milky white, her skin like ancient parchment. This was the seer of the Bloodfang. She was said to be able to see a wolf's lineage just by looking at their soul. My heart began to race. My breath came in short, shallow gasps. Rex's hand tightened on my waist, his thumb stroking my side in a silent attempt to calm me. The girl, Selene commanded. Look at her. The seer stepped forward. She tilted her head, her blind eyes fixed on my face. A silence fell over the hall. It was as if the very air had frozen. I felt a cold shiver crawl up my spine. It felt like invisible fingers were poking and prodding at my mind, peeling back the layers of my identity. The seer's mouth dropped open. She began to tremble, her hands reaching out blindly toward me. 2 hearts, she whispered, her voice a ghostly rasp that echoed in the silence. 2 hearts beating in one frame. One of gold, and one of shadow. Rex froze. The hall erupted into hushed whispers. What does that mean? Selene demanded, her voice sharp. Speak clearly, crone. The seer turned her head toward Rex, then back to me. A tear rolled down her withered cheek. The Alpha seed has taken root in forbidden soil, she cried out. A king is coming. But he is born of a bloodline that was meant to be ash. Selene's face contorted with rage. She shifted her hand and a silver blade slid from her sleeve. A bastard, she screamed. You would bring a bastard of the crescent moon into this house? She lunged, but she wasn't aiming for Rex. She was aiming for my stomach. Chapter 5. The Alpha's Shield. No. Rex's roar was deafening. Before Selene's blade could touch my skin, Rex moved. He was a blur of motion, his body shielding mine as he caught Selene's wrist in midair. The sound of bones snapping echoed through the hall. Selene screamed, the silver dagger clattering to the floor. Rex didn't stop. He shoved her back with a force that sent her flying into the banquet tables. Touch her again, Rex growled, his voice dropping into the terrifying register of his full alpha shift, and I will feed your heart to the crows. The Bloodfang guards drew their swords, and in an instant the Iron Ridge wolves shifted, their fur bristling, their fangs bared. The hall was a tinderbox, 1 second away from a bloodbath. He admits it. Selene shrieked, clutching her broken wrist. He admits he mated with this filth. She's Crescent Moon. Her father was a murderer. Her father was a hero. I shouted, the words tearing out of me before I could stop them. I stepped out from behind Rex, my head held high. The mud and ash had worn off. The mark on my collarbone was glowing brightly now, a radiant silver crescent that no one could miss. My father found the truth about the council. I said, my voice ringing through the hall. He was killed because he discovered who was really poisoning the packs. And if you kill me, you kill the only chance we have of stopping the real enemy. The room went deathly still. Rex looked at me, surprise and something like pride flickering in his silver eyes. Is this true? The Iron Ridge Beta asked, stepping forward. It is, the seer whispered from the floor. The girl speaks the truth of the stars. Selene snarled, her face twisted in a mask of madness. It doesn't matter. The treaty is broken. The Bloodfang will march on these mountains by dawn. You chose a traitor over a Luna, Rex. You've doomed your people. She turned and stormed out of the hall, her guards following her. Rex didn't look at them. He turned to me. He reached out and cupped my face with both hands. His touch was no longer cold or ruthless. It was desperate. You're pregnant, he whispered, his eyes searching mine. The night of the masked moon, it was you. Yes, I breathed. He leaned his forehead against mine, his eyes closing. I've been searching for that scent for 6 weeks. I thought I had imagined it. I thought I had gone mad. He pulled back, his expression hardening into one of pure, unadulterated dominance. He turned to the remaining wolves in the hall. "Prepare the defenses," he commanded. "We are at war. And from this moment on, Rachel is not a tribute. She's your Luna. Anyone who disagrees can answer to my claws." But as the wolves began to scramble, a cold wind blew through the open doors. A shadow fell across the threshold. It wasn't an army. It was a single man, dressed in the tattered remains of a crescent moon uniform. He looked exactly like my father. "The war has already started, Alpha," the man said. "And the baby, she isn't the only one they're coming for." Chapter 6. The Ghost of Crescent Moon. The man in the doorway didn't step into the light. He lingered in the gray shadows of the threshold, his tattered uniform fluttering like the wings of a dying crow. I felt the breath leave my lungs. Those eyes. The way he tilted his head. It was him. "Father," I whispered, my voice barely a thread. Rex's hand dropped from my face, his fingers curling into claws. His wolf was on high alert, a low vibration humming in his chest that told me he didn't trust the vision before us. "Silas is dead," Rex said, his voice a warning. "I saw the pyre myself." The man stepped forward and the torchlight hit his face. He wasn't Silas. He was younger, his skin mapped with jagged scars that told a story of years in captivity. "Not Silas," the man said, his voice like gravel grinding together. "But his blood. I am Julian. Silas's younger brother. Your uncle, Rachel." I took a step toward him, but Rex blocked my path, his massive frame a wall of muscle and heat. "Why now?" Rex demanded. "Why surface after 20 years of silence?" Julian looked at Rex, then his gaze drifted to my glowing mark. "Because the prophecy of the crescent moon was never about a single wolf. It was about the child she carries. The one you sired in the shadows of the willow trees." A collective gasp rippled through the hall. The Iron Ridge wolves were already on edge, and now, a ghost from a forbidden lineage was confirming the seer's words. "The Blood Fang pack isn't just coming for revenge," Julian continued, his eyes wide with a frantic light. "They are coming to harvest. Celine's father has made a pact with the Shadow Stalkers. They believe the blood of a crescent moon royal can grant a wolf the power to shift into a mountain-sized behemoth. They want the baby Rex. They want the heart of your heir." I felt a cold hand wrap around my own heart. I moved instinctively, my hand covering my stomach. I wasn't just a hidden princess or a captive mate anymore. I was a target. And my child was the prize. Rex turned to Julian, his silver eyes flashing with a lethal intent. "If they want my child, they will have to walk over the corpses of every warrior in this mountain. But why should I trust you? You could be a plant. A distraction." Julian fell to his knees, baring his neck, the ultimate sign of submission. "I escaped their pits for this. Do what you will with me, Alpha. But move the girl. The Iron Ridge fortress is strong, but it has a leak. There is a traitor among your council." Rex stiffened. I felt the air in the room grow heavy. To an Alpha, a traitor in the council was a death sentence for the pack. He looked at his elders, the men who had advised his father and now him. Before Rex could speak, the floor beneath us groaned. A deep, resonant thud echoed from the tunnels below the great hall. It wasn't an explosion. It was the sound of a massive iron bolt being slid into place from the outside. We weren't just being attacked. We were being locked in. Chapter 7. The Trial of the Luna. "The lower gates," the beta shouted, his voice cracking the silence. "They've been sealed. We're trapped in the upper levels." Chaos erupted. Warriors shifted, the sound of tearing fabric and snapping bones filling the hall. Rex didn't shift. He stood tall, his presence a calm eye in the middle of a hurricane. He grabbed my hand, his grip so tight I felt the pulse of his wolf through his skin. "Julian, if you're lying, I'll kill you myself," Rex growled. "Beta, take a squad to the tunnels. If anyone resists, don't ask questions. Eliminate the threat." As the warriors scrambled, Rex turned to me. His eyes were no longer just silver. They were swirling with a dark, primal gold. "I have to lead the defense. But the pack, they won't fight for a Luna they don't believe in. They think you're a weak human link, Rachel." "I'm not human," I said, my voice gaining a strength I didn't know I possessed. "And I'm not weak." "Prove it," Rex whispered. He pulled me toward the center of the hall, where a circular stone pit sat embedded in the floor. The moon altar. The Iron Ridge doesn't accept a Luna through a ceremony. They accept her through the trial of the flame. If the mountain recognizes your blood, the fire will turn silver. If it doesn't? I asked. The fire will consume you, Julian said from the shadows. It is an ancient defense mechanism. It weeds out those who would infiltrate the pack with false intentions. The council elders stepped forward, their faces grim. The Alpha cannot protect you in the altar, girl, one of them spat. If you are truly the crescent moon, show us. Give the warriors a reason to die for you. Rex looked at me, his expression tortured. He wanted to pull me away to hide me in the highest tower, but he knew the law. If I failed the trial, the pack would revolt. If I succeeded, I would have an army at my command. Do you trust me? Rex asked, his voice barely audible over the growing roar of the mob. With my life, I said. I stepped into the pit. The stones were ice-cold against my bare feet. At the center, a small brazier sat, unlit. I felt the eyes of hundreds of wolves on me, some hopeful, most hateful. I reached out my hand. I didn't have a flint. I didn't have a match. I closed my eyes and reached deep into my soul, searching for that spark I had felt when Rex first touched me. I thought of the baby. I thought of the night under the willows. I thought of the fire that was currently burning in Rex's eyes. I touched the cold charcoal. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. A sneer began to form on the elder's face. Then a tiny spark of violet light jumped from my fingertip. The brazier didn't just light, it erupted. But the flames weren't silver. They weren't orange. They were a brilliant, blinding white that spiraled toward the ceiling, forming the shape of a massive howling wolf. And from the center of the flame, a voice whispered a name that made Rex drop to his knees in shock. Chapter 8. The Shadow Heartbeat. The white wolf of flame dissipated into the air, leaving a shimmering mist of silver dust that settled over everyone in the hall. The silence was absolute. The name the fire had whispered still hung in the air like a ghost. Silas. My father's name. The mountain hadn't just recognized my blood. It had claimed it as royalty. The Iron Ridge wolves, who had spent decades hating the crescent moon, now looked at me with a terrifying kind of awe. Rex stood up slowly, his face a mask of shock. The flame, it didn't just accept you. It called out to the king. He was innocent, Rex, I said, my voice echoing in the rafters. The mountain knows. My father didn't betray the packs. He was the one who built these altars. But the victory was short-lived. As the silver dust settled, a sharp, searing pain tore through my abdomen. I gasped, clutching my stomach as I fell to my knees. The heat of the trial was being replaced by a cold, numbing sensation that felt like ice water in my veins. Rachel. Rex was at my side in a second, his arms wrapping around me. Something's wrong, I choked out. The baby, it feels like it's fading. Get the healer. Rex roared. Now. We were rushed to the inner sanctum, a room carved deep into the living rock where the air was thick with the scent of dried herbs and ancient magic. The healer, an old wolf named Mara, placed her hands on my stomach. She closed her eyes, her face wrinkling in concentration. Rex paced the room like a caged animal, his growls vibrating the stone walls. If she loses that child, Mara, I will tear this mountain down stone by stone. The child is strong, Alpha, Mara said, her voice trembling. But the seer was right. There are two heartbeats. One is the child's. Strong, steady, the heartbeat of a future king. And the other? I asked, my breath hitching. Mara looked at Rex, her eyes filled with a deep, ancient dread. The other is a shadow. It is not a twin. It is a curse. A parasite of shadow magic that was planted in Rachel during her time in the pits of the north. It is feeding on the baby's light. If we don't remove it, it will hollow her out from the inside. Rex stopped pacing. He looked at me, his silver eyes filled with a vulnerability I had never seen. How do we remove it? It requires a blood bond, Mara said. The Alpha must share his life force with the mother and the child. He must enter her mind, find the shadow and hunt it down. But if he fails, if the shadow consumes him in the spirit realm, he will never wake up. And his wolf will die with him. Rex didn't hesitate. He sat on the edge of the bed and took my hand. Do it, Rex commanded. Mara began the chant, and the room began to dissolve into a swirl of gray mist. But as I felt Rex's consciousness merge with mine, a third presence entered the room. A cold, feminine laughter that I recognized all too well. Celine hadn't left. She was inside my mind. Chapter 9: The Spirit Hunt. The world of the spirit was a distorted reflection of the Iron Ridge fortress. The walls were made of smoke and the floor felt like walking through deep water. I was standing in the great hall, but it was empty save for a thick black fog that coiled around the pillars like snakes. Rex. I called out, my voice echoing into the void. I'm here. He emerged from the mist, his form taller, more luminous. Here he wasn't just a man, he was the embodiment of the Alpha, a glowing, silver-eyed warrior. He reached for me, his hand warm and solid. Stay close. This place is a mirror of your fears. You shouldn't have come, a voice purred. Celine stepped out from behind a pillar. But this wasn't the Celine from the hall. She was a creature of shadow, her eyes glowing with a sickly purple light. She held a tether of dark energy that led directly into my chest. The parasite. The Bloodfang pack doesn't just use steel alpha, Celine hissed. We use the old ways. This shadow is a fragment of my father's soul. It will grow until it replaces your heir. Your Luna is nothing but a nursery for a new monster. Rex growled, the sound shaking the foundations of the spirit world. You overplayed your hand, Celine. You're in our bond now. You have no power here. Don't I? Celine laughed. She flicked her wrist and the black fog surged forward, forming into a pack of shadow wolves. They snarled, their teeth made of obsidian, their eyes hollow. The fight was a blur of silver and shadow. Rex fought like a man possessed, his claws tearing through the smoke wolves, his roar a physical force that pushed back the dark. But every time he struck a shadow it reformed. It was feeding on the bond. It was feeding on us. I watched him struggle and a sudden realization hit me. This wasn't just Rex's fight. This was my mind. My body. My baby. I looked at the tether in my chest. I didn't try to pull it out. I grabbed it with both hands and began to pull the shadow into me. Rachel, no. Rex shouted. It will consume you. I am the crescent moon. I screamed. I don't fear the dark. I command it. I channeled the white flame of the trial, sending it down the tether like a lightning bolt. The energy surged through me, the light and the dark clashing in a violent explosion of power. Celine's spirit form shrieked as the white fire burned her tether. The shadow wolves dissolved and Celine was thrown back into the mist. But as the spirit world began to collapse, I saw the truth behind the parasite. It wasn't just a curse. It was a map. And as it dissolved, it revealed a location in the fortress that Rex had forgotten. A secret chamber beneath the throne that held the real traitor. Chapter 10. The Unmasking. We woke up with a synchronized gasp, our bodies drenched in sweat, our hearts beating as one. The room was still, the silver mist finally fading. It's gone, Mara whispered, her hands still on my stomach. The shadow is destroyed. The baby is safe. Rex didn't wait to celebrate. He pulled me up, his eyes sharp with the knowledge we had gained in the spirit realm. The council chamber, he said. The room behind the tapestry of the first hunt. That's where the link was anchored. Rex, wait, I said, clutching his arm. The traitor. I saw a face in the shadow. It wasn't an elder. It was someone we trust. Rex didn't listen. His wolf was in control now, driven by the need to purge the rot from his pack. We raced through the fortress, the warriors falling into line behind us. Rex kicked open the doors to the council chamber, his eyes scanning the startled faces of the elders. He walked past the men who had served his father. He walked past the beta. He stopped in front of the one person who had been his most loyal advisor since he took the throne. Move the tapestry, Julian, Rex said, his voice a low, lethal silk. Julian, my uncle, the man who had warned us of the attack, stood perfectly still. Alpha? I don't understand. I am the one who saved you. You didn't save us, Rex said. You led us into a trap. You knew the trial would draw out the pack's power, leaving the defenses weak. You anchored Celine's curse so you could play the hero while she killed my heir. Rex reached out and ripped the tapestry from the wall. Behind it was a hidden door, etched with the same purple runes I had seen in the spirit world. Julian's face transformed. The ragged, scarred victim vanished, replaced by a man with a cold, calculating smile. Silas was a fool. He wanted peace. I want the world. And the Bloodfang offered me a seat at the table. He didn't shift into a wolf. He He did something far worse. He pulled a vial of dark liquid from his belt and smashed it on the floor. A cloud of purple gas erupted, the same shadow magic we had just fought. The Bloodfang are already at the gates, Rex. Julian shouted as he backed into the secret passage. And they aren't alone. They've brought the Silver Slayers. The Silver Slayers. The legendary mercenary group that specialized in killing alphas. As Julian disappeared into the darkness, the front gates of the fortress didn't just open, they were blown off their hinges. But it wasn't the Bloodfang army that walked through the smoke. It was a man in high-tech silver armor, holding a weapon that glowed with a hum that made every wolf in the room fall to their knees in agony. Alpha Rex, the man said. I believe you have something that belongs to my employers. Chapter 11. The frequency of pain. The sound was unbearable. It wasn't a scream or an explosion. It was a high-pitched metallic hum that vibrated through the very marrow of my bones. I saw Rex drop to his knees, his face contorted in a mask of agony. Around us, the fiercest warriors of the Iron Ridge were clutching their ears, their shifts half completed and frozen in a grotesque display of forced regression. Sonic dampeners, the man in the silver armor said. He stepped through the smoke of the ruined gate, his boots clanking with a cold, rhythmic precision. Specially tuned to the frequency of a werewolf's nervous system. It's hard to be a ruthless alpha when your own brain is trying to liquefy, isn't it? I was the only one still standing. My crescent moon blood, ancient and slightly different in its magical signature, seemed to act as a buffer against the sound. Or maybe it was the baby. A protective aura of white light pulsed faintly around my stomach, shielding me from the worst of the vibration. Stop it! I screamed, lunging toward the silver-clad mercenary. He looked at me, his visor reflecting my desperate face. The girl. The target. He raised a mechanical arm, a tranquilizer dart humming in the barrel. The Bloodfang wants you alive, but they didn't say you had to be conscious. Rex. I yelled, looking back at him. Rex's eyes were bloodshot, his fangs bared in a snarl of pure defiance. He wasn't giving up. He grabbed a heavy stone bench near the throne and, with a roar that broke through the sonic hum, he hurled it. The bench smashed into the mercenary, throwing him back into the rubble. The high-pitched hum flickered and died as the device on his chest cracked. Instantly, the pressure in the room vanished. Rex was on his feet in a blur, his shift completing in midair. The massive black wolf of the Iron Ridge slammed into the mercenary, his jaws snapping at the silver throat piece. Rachel, run! The beta shouted, struggling to his feet. To the catacombs. The Slayers have more units outside. I didn't want to leave Rex, but I saw 3 more silver figures emerging from the smoke. They weren't here for a fair fight. They were here for an execution. I turned to flee toward the back of the hall, but a hand grabbed my hair, jerking me backward. I looked up into the cold, victorious eyes of Julian. He wasn't in the secret passage anymore. He was right behind me and he had a silver dagger pressed to my throat. The Alpha is distracted, niece. Time for your real coronation. Chapter 12. The Hidden Truth of the Crescent. Let her go, Julian. Rex's voice was a guttural roar from the throat of a wolf. He stood over the crumpled mercenary, his fur stained with oil and blood, his eyes locked on the blade at my neck. Stay back, Rex. Julian hissed, pulling me tighter against his chest. I could feel the cold edge of the silver biting into my skin. One step and I'll see if the king's seed can survive a silver-tainted womb. The hall fell into a terrifying standoff. The remaining Iron Ridge warriors surrounded us, but nobody dared to move. The Slayers outside were busy engaging the pack's perimeter, the sounds of gunfire and howling echoing through the mountains. Why? I choked out, the silver stinging my throat. You're my family. My father loved you. Your father was a dreamer, Rachel. Julian spat into my ear. He thought the crescent moon could lead the packs into a new age of peace. He didn't realize that wolves are meant to be predators, not philosophers. The Bloodfang understands that. They don't want peace, they want power. And with your blood they can have it. You're a coward, I whispered. Julian laughed, a dry, hollow sound. Am I? I'm the one who survived while your father burned. I'm the one who... He was interrupted by a low, vibrating hum, not from a machine but from the floor itself. The moon altar where I had performed the trial began to glow with a deep, pulsing violet light. The shadows in the room began to stretch and twist, detaching themselves from the pillars. Julian's eyes went wide. What is this? The trial is over. The trial isn't over until the Luna is seated, the seer's voice echoed from the shadows. She was standing by the altar, her sightless eyes turned toward the ceiling. The mountain is responding to the threat. It is calling the shadows of the ancestors. Dark, ethereal shapes of wolves began to manifest around the room. They weren't made of fur and bone but of smoke and starlight. They ignored the Iron Ridge warriors and moved straight for the mercenaries and Julian. Rex took the opportunity. He lunged. Julian tried to slash my throat, but a shadow wolf slammed into him, knocking the dagger from his hand. I fell to the floor, gasping. Rex moved to finish him, but Julian did something unexpected. He didn't fight back. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small ancient horn made of white bone. He blew it and the sound didn't come from the horn. It came from me. I let out a scream as a surge of agonizing energy erupted from my crescent mark. Chapter 13. The Echo of the Horn. The sound was a psychic blast that leveled everyone in the room. It felt as if my soul were being pulled through a needle's eye. I collapsed, my vision swimming with purple and white spots. The horn of the first mother, the seer whispered, her voice filled with horror. It doesn't call the living, it calls the blood. I felt my body being lifted, but not by Julian. It was the power itself. I was levitating inches above the moon altar, my mark glowing so brightly it cast shadows of the rafters against the walls. Julian stood back, his face a mask of twisted triumph. The girl isn't just a royal, Rex. She's the key. The horn activates the dormant power in her blood. She's not just carrying your air, she's becoming the bridge to the primal source. Outside, the mountain itself began to shake. Boulders tumbled down the slopes. The very earth was reacting to the frequency of the bone horn. Rex shifted back into his human form, his face pale with exertion. He reached for me, his fingers grazing the edge of my dress, but a barrier of pure energy threw him back. Rachel. Fight it. I couldn't fight it. It felt like a flood of memories, not mine, but of 1,000 women who had come before me. I saw the first crescent moon Luna standing atop this very mountain. I saw the pact made between the wolves and the earth. And then I saw the darkness. Inside the power of the horn was a rot. Julian hadn't told us the whole truth. The horn had been corrupted by the blood fang. They weren't just trying to wake my power. They were trying to poison it, to turn the Luna into a weapon of mass destruction that would level the Iron Ridge. Stop it, I thought, reaching for the baby's heartbeat. Protect him. The baby's heart responded. It was a tiny gold spark in the middle of the violet storm. I focused all my will on that spark. I didn't try to stop the power. I tried to filter it through the bond one shared with the child. It's working. Julian shouted. The mountain is breaking. The Iron Ridge will fall. A massive crack split the floor of the great hall, stretching from the altar toward the throne. But instead of lava or darkness, a blinding white light poured out. A figure stepped out of the light. A woman with flowing white hair and eyes like the moon. She looked exactly like the woman from my visions. Who dares wake the mother with a tainted horn? She asked. And then she looked at me. And why is my descendant carrying the child of a storm wolf? Chapter 14. The Mother's Mercy. The woman wasn't a ghost. She was a manifestation of the mountain's soul, the first Luna. Her presence was so overwhelming that the mercenaries froze, and even the shadow wolves bowed their heads. Julian's triumph vanished. He looked at the first Luna with a mix of awe and terror. I used the horn to save the lineage. To wake the true power. You used a corrupted relic to enslave a mother, the first Luna said, her voice like the sound of 1,000 waterfalls. She turned her gaze to me, still hovering in the air. And you, child of Silas, you carry a heavy burden. The storm wolf's blood is wild and ruthless. Your blood is ancient and calm. Together you create a balance. But the world is not ready for balance. She waved her hand and the bone horn in Julian's hand turned to dust. The energy holding me up vanished. I plummeted toward the stone floor, but Rex was there. He caught me, his arms locking around me with a desperate, crushing strength. I have you, he whispered into my hair. I have you, Rachel. The first Luna looked at Rex. Alpha of the Iron Ridge. You have claimed this woman as your Luna without a crown. You have fought for her without a treaty. But the Bloodfang army is at your gates, and they have brought more than just mercenaries. They have brought the Shadow King. Rex stood tall, his hand still firmly on my waist. Let them come. This is my mountain. She is my Luna. And the child is the future of this pack. Then you must prove your worth, the first Luna said. She faded into a mist of silver stars, but before she disappeared, she touched my forehead. The power is yours now, Rachel. Not as a weapon but as a shield. Use it. The great hall grew quiet as the light faded. But the silence was broken by the sound of thousands of boots marching on the stone outside. The Bloodfang had finally breached the outer walls. Rex, I said, looking at the ruin of the hall. We can't win a head-on battle. They outnumber us 10-1. Rex looked at me, a wolfish, ruthless grin spreading across his face. We aren't going to fight a head-on battle. Julian mentioned a leak in the council. He mentioned the tunnels. Rex turned to the beta. Open the gas valves in the lower levels. We're going to give the Bloodfang the fire they've been asking for. But first, Rex looked at Julian, who was trying to crawl away. We need to send a message to their king. Chapter 15. The Unofficial Luna's Command. The atmosphere in the fortress had shifted. It was no longer a desperate defense. It was a coordinated hunt. Rex was the general, but I was something else. I could feel the heartbeat of every wolf in the pack. The bond hadn't just linked me to Rex. It had linked me to the mountain itself. The left flank is weakening, I told Rex, my eyes closed as I felt the vibrations through the stone. They're using silver-tipped arrows. Beta, take the third squad and flank them through the wine cellar, Rex commanded. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a new kind of respect. Can you find the king? He's not with the army, I said, my brow furrowed. He's in the high peaks. He's waiting for the explosion. The Bloodfang King, Celine's father, was a coward who let others do his fighting. He was waiting for the Iron Ridge to be leveled before he stepped in to claim the ruins. Julian, Rex barked. Julian was tied to a pillar, his face bruised. What? You're going to kill me now? No, Rex said. You're going to take a message to your king. Tell him the Luna is dead. Tell him the fortress is his. What? I gasped. Rex, no. Rex pulled me into a side room away from Julian's ears. He grabbed my shoulders, his intensity burning through me. It's a feint, Rachel. We need him to come down from those peaks. We need him in the Great Hall. If we kill the king, the army will scatter. They're only here for the payout and the fear. And if he doesn't believe it? He'll believe it when he sees the Luna's body, Rex said. He looked at the seer who had followed us. Can you do it? The seer nodded. An illusion of the mind. It will hold for long enough. I felt a cold dread in my stomach. And what about you, Rex? Where will you be? Rex leaned down and kissed me, a deep, possessive and lingering kiss that tasted of salt and storm. I'll be in the shadows, waiting for my turn. We set the trap. Julian was released, fleeing like a rat into the night to deliver the news. The Iron Ridge wolves retreated into the hidden tunnels, leaving the great hall empty and silent. I lay on the moon altar, the seer's magic weaving a shroud around me that made me look pale and lifeless. The scent of my blood was masked. To any observer, the crescent moon lineage was ended. The doors of the hall creaked open. A man with a crown of jagged iron walked in. He was massive, his presence oozing with a foul, oily magic. He walked toward the altar, a sneer on his face as he looked down at my corpse. But he didn't stop there. He reached out a hand to touch my stomach. A waste of good blood, he hissed. But at least the heart is still fresh. He drew a jagged obsidian knife. Chapter 16. The Obsidian Blade. The cold tip of the obsidian knife brushed against the silk of my dress, right over my womb. I forced my breathing to stay shallow, my heart to remain a slow, rhythmic drum. I had to wait. I had to be the perfect corpse. The girl was a means to an end, the Bloodfang King Malphas hissed. His voice sounded like dry leaves scraping on a grave. But the child could have been my ultimate vessel. No matter. The blood of a crescent royal is just as potent when cold. He raised the knife, the jagged glass reflecting the dying embers of the braziers. With this sacrifice, the Iron Ridge falls and the age of the Stormwolf ends. He began to bring the blade down. Now, Rex's voice thundered in my mind through our bond. I didn't just wake up, I erupted. I grabbed Malphas's wrist with both hands, channeling the white flame I had learned to control during the trial. The energy surged from my mark, turning my skin into a searing brand. Malphas shrieked as the holy light of the mountain burned his skin. He tried to pull away, but I held on with the strength of a mother protecting her young. The crescent moon doesn't fall, I roared. From the shadows of the rafters, a massive black shape plummeted. Rex didn't shift midair this time. He was already a wolf, a terrifying engine of fur and fury. He slammed into Malphas, his jaws locking onto the king's shoulder. The great hall, which had been a tomb moments ago, exploded with life. The Iron Ridge warriors poured out of the hidden floor panels, catching the Bloodfang elite completely off guard. Kill them! Malphas screamed, struggling under Rex's weight. Kill them all. But the Bloodfang soldiers were paralyzed. They had been told the Luna was dead and the Alpha was broken. Seeing us both alive and fighting with the fury of gods shattered their morale. Malphas kicked Rex off him, his eyes glowing with a sickly purple light. He wasn't just a wolf, he was a sorcerer. He clapped his hands together, and a wave of dark energy blasted Rex back into the throne. Malphas turned to the doors. "Bring in the behemoth," he commanded. The ground began to shake with a rhythm far heavier than any army. Chapter 17. The Behemoth's Shadow. The stone walls of the fortress groaned as the behemoth approached. It wasn't a wolf. It was a monstrosity. A wolf the size of a mountain cat, its skin grafted with silver plates and its eyes replaced by glowing violet gems. It was a product of the Bloodfang's forbidden experiments. The creature smashed through the main gates, its mere presence causing the Iron Ridge warriors to scatter. One swipe of its massive silver-clawed paw sent 3 wolves flying into the stone pillars. "Rex!" I screamed, running toward him. Rex was struggling to stand, the dark blast from Malphas having drained his vitality. He looked at the behemoth, his silver eyes narrowing. "That thing, it's not alive. It's a puppet." "Then we cut the strings," I said, reaching for his hand. When our palms met, the bond sparked. It wasn't just a physical connection anymore. It was a bridge. I could feel Rex's strength and he could feel my light. Together we were the balance the first Luna had spoken of. "Rachel, the gems in its eyes," Rex panted, his wolf pushing through his human skin. "They're the anchors for the magic. If we shatter them, the creature falls." "I can't reach that high," I said, looking at the towering beast. "I can," Rex growled. "But I need your light to blind it." We moved as one. I channeled every ounce of the crescent moon's power into a single blinding flash. It wasn't a flame this time. It was a pillar of pure moonlight that filled the hall. The behemoth roared in pain, its violet eyes flickering as the light overloaded its senses. Rex lunged. He used the fallen pillars as stepping stones, leaping with an agility that defied his size. He landed on the behemoth's neck, his claws digging into the silver plating. Rex raised his paw to strike the gem, but Malphas let out a jagged laugh. He pointed his obsidian knife at me. "If the Alpha strikes, the Luna dies." He threw the knife with a guided magical force. It didn't fly toward my heart. It flew toward the golden spark of the baby. Chapter 18. The Shield of the Air. Time seemed to slow down. I saw the obsidian blade spinning through the air, trailing a ribbon of purple smoke. I couldn't move fast enough. Rex was too far away, perched atop the behemoth. I closed my eyes and threw my hands up, not to catch the blade but to protect my stomach. "Protect him," I screamed in my mind. A soft, golden hum filled my ears. The blade didn't hit me. It froze in midair, inches from my palms. A sphere of brilliant, warm light had formed around me, a shield generated not by my power but by the child within. The obsidian knife shattered into dust as it touched the golden aura. Malphas gasped, his face paling. "Impossible. The child hasn't even breathed the air yet." "He doesn't need to," I said, my voice resonating with a power that wasn't entirely mine. "He knows who his father is. And he knows his mother is a queen." The distraction was all Rex needed. With a roar that shook the mountain, he brought his fist down on the behemoth's right eye. The violet gem shattered into 1,000 shards. The creature let out a final, mournful howl and collapsed, its body dissolving into a pile of ash and silver plates. Rex landed on his feet, shifting back into his human form as he stalked toward Malphas. The Bloodfang King backed away, his magic spent, his army retreating into the night. "This isn't over, Stormwolf," Malphas hissed. "The Council will never accept a crescent moon, Luna. You've started a war that will burn the world." "Then let it burn," Rex said, his voice a low, lethal promise. "We'll build a better world on the ashes." Rex didn't kill Malphas. He grabbed him by the throat and dragged him toward the moon altar. "You want to speak to the Council?" Rex asked. "Then speak to the one who truly judges this mountain." He threw Malphas into the white flames of the altar. But the flames didn't burn him. They turned black and began to pull him down into the stone itself. Chapter 19. The Coronation of the Unofficial. The war was won, but the fortress was a ruin. The sun began to rise over the jagged peaks of the Iron Ridge, casting a soft pink light over the blood-stained marble of the Great Hall. The survivors of the pack gathered. They weren't cheering. They were exhausted, mourning their dead and looking at me with a mixture of fear and reverence. I was no longer the captive. I was the woman who had held the light. Rex stood before them, his body covered in scars, his hand gripping mine so tightly I knew he'd never let go. "The Bloodfang King is gone," Rex announced, his voice carrying through the valley. "The treaty is void. From this day forward, the Iron Ridge stands alone. We are no longer a pack of shadows and secrets." He turned to me, dropping to one knee in front of his entire people. "Rachel of the Crescent Moon," he said, his silver eyes soft. "I took you as a prisoner. I claimed you as a mate. But today I ask you to be my Luna. Not by accident, not by bond, but by choice." I looked at the wolves who had once called me filth. I looked at Julian, who was being led away in chains. Then I looked at Rex. He was ruthless, yes. He was dangerous. But he was the father of my child, and he had bled for me. "I choose you, Rex," I said. The seer stepped forward, carrying a crown made of iron and silver, the crown of the Iron Ridge. He placed it on my head. The moment the metal touched my skin, the crescent mark on my neck stopped glowing. It didn't disappear. It settled, becoming a permanent, elegant tattoo. The warriors let out a howl, a long, unified sound that signaled the birth of a new era. But as the celebration began, the seer pulled me aside. Her milky eyes were fixed on the horizon. "The King of the North is gone, Luna," she whispered. But Malphas was only a pawn. The shadow magic he used, it didn't come from the Bloodfang. It came from the human realm. And they are coming to see what kind of king you have brought into the world. Chapter 20. The Accidental Legacy. 7 months later. The Iron Ridge had been rebuilt, stronger and more beautiful than ever. The pack was thriving, and the rumors of my unofficial status had long been replaced by stories of the Luna who could command the mountain. I stood on the balcony of our quarters, the mountain air cool against my skin. Rex came up behind me, his arms wrapping around my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder. My stomach was round and heavy, a constant reminder of the miracle we had survived. "He's kicking again," I laughed, leaning back into Rex's warmth. "He has his father's temper," Rex joked, though his voice was full of pride. We looked out over the kingdom. Peace had returned, but we both knew it was a fragile thing. The seer's warning about the human realm stayed in the back of my mind, a dark cloud on a sunny day. "Do you ever regret it?" Rex asked softly. "The accident? The bond?" "Every day was a struggle," I said, turning in his arms to face him. "But I wouldn't trade a single scar. We weren't a mistake, Rex. We were an intervention." Rex leaned down and kissed me, a gentle, lingering kiss that felt like a promise kept. Suddenly, a loud crack of thunder echoed through the clear blue sky. A shimmering rift began to open in the valley below, not of purple shadow but of cold, blue electricity. A fleet of strange, metallic birds began to emerge from the rift. Rex's eyes turned silver. His wolf was ready. I felt a surge of power from my stomach, the golden shield ready to manifest at a second's notice. I wasn't afraid. I was the Luna of the Iron Ridge. "Is that them?" I asked, watching the human machines descend. "Yes," Rex said, his fangs lengthening. "The world has come to meet the heir." I smiled, my hand resting on my stomach. "Then let's show them what a crescent moon and a storm wolf can do." Then